Good morning. Welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is free will. I think this will be a really interesting conversation because we believe that we have free will. And as a result of that belief, all kinds of things occur in our lives and the way that we judge ourselves and others, etc. So it should be a stimulating conversation, but before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, energizing all your cells, all your electrons, all your molecules, and lighting you up from the inside out. And as you exhale any remaining stress, tension, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just bring ourselves present for a moment. Let's just gently press our palms together and softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the sensation, the textures under your fingertips, the tickling and the tingling, and bring yourselves present right here, right now, into this physical body, and appreciating the ability for us to actually have these amazing ways to sense the world around us. So, free will. This will be a fun one. We talk about how we can exercise free will, and we talk about how we can exercise choice. And we've talked a lot about sovereignty and independence of thought. And I want to dive a little bit more deeply. Good morning, Bernadette. So good to have you here with us. I want to dive a bit more deeply into this notion of free will. I had a really interesting conversation recently with someone who builds video games. And one of the things that he said about these video games, good morning. Good morning, Rosalind, and wonderful to have you here with us. And Bernadette says, oh, I like free will, LOL. Okay, so I like free will too. However, I want to kind of dive into how free is our free will after all. And I was talking about this conversation I had with a person who builds video games. And what he said is that a big part of the design of these games is to create the illusion of choice, and let that resound and bounce around in your brain for a minute, to create the illusion of choice. And when we are operating under the notion that we have choice, then we also have responsibility, right? So choice and responsibility go hand in hand. Good morning, Dennis. We're talking about free will today and how free really is our free will. So I for years and years, I was so confused about how to square this idea of free will and fate, free will and destiny. And what I came up with was that everything, every possibility, this isn't my invention, this is from quantum physics, that every possibility that could ever be already exists now and for always. So essentially there's no time. Everything that's ever happened or ever will happen already is. And so in that notion, maybe our our path is fated, right? And the way that I imagine it is that on any given timeline, the timeline is fixed. But at any given moment, there's a choice point, and depending upon the choice point, it catapults you into another timeline. So that's how I was resolving this idea of fate and free will, because we get to make the choices, and yet the timeline itself is fixed or fated. Good morning, Andrea. So good to have you here with us. So I want to talk about that a bit, because this whole illusion. So Bernadette says also consequences can come with choices. Exactly. Consequences and responsibility, same kind of thing. You know, it's like we choose one thing and that triggers off all these other things that are bound to that choice in one way or another. So when I want to take a look, for example, about choice. You know, what is choice? A lot of us look at choice and we make considered choices, we make considered decisions, right? And our considered decisions are often based, or are typically based, on the information that we have available to us, right? So if the information that we have available to us is prevailingly skewed in one direction, and we don't really have access to other information that might shift the terrain, then our decision, our choice, our free choice, our considered choice is going to be skewed along with the resources that are available to us. Isn't that true? When you say, so if I am consistently told by all kinds of people in authority that something is safe for me, then I am likely to believe that thing is safe. If I am consistently told by people in authority that something is not safe for me, then I am likely to believe that that thing is not safe for me. Is that choice? Is it choice if I'm being swayed? So we can look at social media and we can see that that social media has a lot of influence on us, right? Thank you. So Dennis says information is often distorted, as in politics. Exactly. As in health, as in politics, as in finance. You know, as in nutrition. You know, all these different areas we receive information that can be curated in such a way as to skew our beliefs, right? And to perpetrate the illusion of choice, right? Because if we like to think that we are discerning and thinking individuals, and when our information is skewed, that is shaping our vantage point, right? So in a certain way, as I see it, it's giving us an illusion of choice, you know, because if we're told, hey, this is better, this is better, this is better, and we believe that that's better, then we're going to choose the thing that's better, right? But we've been indoctrinated to believe that that thing is better, right? And we don't recognize necessarily that indoctrination. So where does the choice come in? Because we want to make the choices that are best for us, right? If we believe that to get a good job, to have a productive life, that we need to have an advanced degree, and that's worth the money that we pay for those degrees because it's going to provide us with a better life, then that's the path that we are going to take responsibly, right? We're going to, because we're being responsible. We're weighing the options. We're looking at the choices. The thing is that may or may not be a valid premise that we're being indoctrinated into. And so Bernadette says, sometimes the choice is based on an illusion of what we expected it to be and past experience. So projecting our past experience forward and therefore making our choice. And that projection is an illusion. So also sometimes a leap of faith into unfamiliar ground can open up what we truly want. 100%, Bernadette. And that's where we get back to trusting ourselves, trusting our gut, trusting our inner knowing when we're connected. I'm not talking about, whim kind of thing. I'm talking about being connected to the inner calling and the inner voice. But for sure, that leap of faith can open up new vistas of possibility for us. And so Rosalind says, making an educated choice is what we hope for, but I'm skeptical of information being pushed out. So am I. So am I in so many arenas. And good afternoon, Pat. So good to have you with us. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's not what I intended to talk about when I thought about free will. But it is something that we really get to look at because we are culturally manipulated in so many ways by media, by social media, by politics, by the way we get our information, by our communities. And so we saw how dramatically people can be manipulated in the elections and in the response to whether the truth or untruth of the election that took place. We see that there are factions, there are polarities, and both sides are being fed information that is predisposing them to believe in a certain way. So when we have these influences that are looking to indoctrinate us, what is free choice? What is free will? And is it really an illusion of choice, that we are manipulated into believing that my life is going to be better if I get that big car or that big house, right? And maybe that's shifting. I hope that's shifting finally. But this has been a theme. It's like, find the spouse, have the children, have the nice house, have the nice car, have the nice things, have the great job. These are, and then that means your life is worthwhile and you've succeeded, right? These are all ways that we have been indoctrinated that then impact the choices that we make, and based on what we believe to be solid information or well-reasoned choices or perspectives, right? where we I think are pretty much at the effect of the external influences. And really what I had expected to talk about this morning in this conversation was more about how in our own lives we have triggers. And based on these triggers, we have reactivity, which is kind of robotic behavior. So I had such an interesting conversation yesterday with a friend who is in a situation where their reactivity really took over to the point that what they were doing was a detriment to them. And we all have behaviors that are detrimental to us, right? But that become just sort of patterned, reactive ways of being that we don't even have the capacity to consciously control. And so what happens to free will in those moments? So for example, this person was really, really, really reactive to anybody telling them what to do. And the example I gave was, what if you really wanted to go for a walk? And then here I am and I say, okay, I think you should go for a walk. And then what's the reaction? The reaction is, hell no, I'm not going for a walk. That, you told me to go for a walk, so I'm not going for a walk. But meantime, I wanted to go for a walk or you wanted to go for a walk, and now you're not doing it because I told you to. And where's your free will in that? Because it's totally reactive, right? It's not saying, well, what do I want? What am I choosing? It's being in that reactive moment. And so Bernadette says, for me, free choice is deciding what's best for me at the time of mindset. I tend to not follow the norm because I'm an outside the box thinker. And Bernadette, I'm with you. I tend to, and maybe this is a function of our own, reactivity, but I tend to be out of the box thinking too, with challenging, like my response is, I'm going to challenge that. I'm going to learn more about it. I'm going to see what else there is to see, which leaves me in a place of potentially being influenced by other factors, that I lend more credibility to, for example. So, I'm encouraging all of us to be looking at the assumptions. And I've been talking about this forever, and I do talk about this forever because I believe ultimately my highest value is freedom. And that means sovereignty of thought. And the question is, how do we access that when we are influenced by all these externalities that are often skewed and manipulated? So Pat says, I don't know if this has been said, but I believe it starts in school days. Pat, I'm there with you 100%. I didn't say that, but I do believe it. I believe really that our school system is not structured so much as a resource for education, but as a vehicle that was originally created to pump out factory workers, people who would toe the line and follow the rules. And I think that there's a big social indoctrination that happens in school that limits the way that we think rather than expanding the way that we think. It's kind of teaching us how to follow rules more than how to think. We might learn a lot in school, but what we learn is to be, to toe the line in a lot of ways. And I wish that would change. I think it's very interesting to me to notice how a number of people who are the most creative thinkers have been homeschooled or schooled alternatively. So I think that there's a big part of truth to what you're saying, Pat. And Bernadette says it's not free will when you're in the mindset of wounded. So important for the wounds to be healed to a healthy lifestyle and allowing clarity of what our soul truly is. 100%, Bernadette. And the thing is, when we're in the mindset of woundedness, we don't even know it sometimes. Sometimes we don't even know, like I know of someone else, probably many people who have been through a traumatic relationship or a string of traumatic relationships. And then there's the protection, right? That we surround ourselves with so that we won't get hurt. And so we don't allow love in, we don't allow the experience. Is that free will? I'm wondering how free our free will really is, whether it's socially or even personally, from when somebody has a phobia, when somebody has a phobia, there is no reasoning in the moment of that trigger, right? Let's say someone's afraid of spiders and all of a sudden there's a spider. That person goes into a paroxysm of panic, right? Where's the free will in that? It's a patterned response. It's like turning on the switch of a robot that just goes and plays out its thing. And so much of our lives are about that on all different levels. So, what does it look like to have free will? To what degree are we truly free? And I think that is a valuable question, to be looking at, is that my opinion, or is that what I have been indoctrinated to believe? Is that mine? And Bernadette says, fight or flight is not free will. Exactly. And I'm wondering, when are we exercising free will? Really? Where do our impulses come from? Where are we? To what degree? I think that we exercise free will to varying degrees, but I wonder, I've read about studies where if you have a cup of coffee before an interaction versus no cup of coffee, the outcome is different. If you have a pleasant interaction before a meeting, the outcome is different than if you didn't. If you have a court date in the morning versus the afternoon, the outcome is different. How much of it is free will? How much of us believe or recognize our invisible prejudices, that we act out of without even being conscious? So Bernadette says, I believe we have free will when our choices make our hearts sing. I love that, Bernadette. And I wonder if that is simply aligning with our greater will. Like maybe that's the choice. And when our hearts sing, we're getting confirmation that's what our soul is calling for. Maybe that's the influence of our soul that's allowing itself to be expressed. I'm playing devil's advocate here because, I am all about freedom and choice. And that, like I said, is my highest value. So I want to be looking at, I would like to believe that I'm free to choose. And I think that there are ways that we can look at things to recognize that, given the circumstances, that is the only choice that we would make. So if given circumstance, the choice that we make is the only choice we would make, is it really choice? If you can wrap your head around that. So Elaine says, for me, freedom is freedom from the mind. I agree. From all attachments, all our beliefs of death. When you remember who you really are and you know that nothing can truly harm you, you live from your true nature and you're free from the false realities that are based on fear, not in love. And I think, Elaine, you're putting your finger on the one true freedom, perhaps. And that is freedom from the mind. Freedom from being purely present, freedom from personality, freedom from opinion, belief, boundedness in our perception of time and space, but just tapping into pure presence is the ultimate freedom. And when we talk about free will, it's almost an oxymoron, because the will is moving us in this direction or that direction. It's not present to the pulse of life as its essence moving through us, expressing itself through us and our actions. And Elaine says freedom from fear. Yes. So I think, saying freedom from fear, of course, that leads us to other choices. And yet I believe that we are predisposed to believe certain things, whether it relates to fear or not. So Elaine says the will of the false self lives in fear, and the world of the true natural self lives in love. And I don't disagree, but I don't think that makes us free of illusion. I think we can live in love and still be in illusion and still not be at true, honest choice. I think that the only place of true, honest choice is a place of complete unattachment. And I'm hypothesizing that, but it may or may not be true. So Bernadette says the mind attaches itself to what is expected and the heart allows us to choose with our soul. Ultimately, absolutely 100%. And that is the place of purity. And what I notice about choosing with our soul is that it's generally pretty clear. It's really more about following the lead of the soul. At least that's my experience, is listening and living through and into that expression. So Elaine says, you're really not imprisoned by illusions. You're really not in prison, maybe, but illusions recreate the illusion to have the human experience. It's just information. The soul's taking it in. It's a choice. Yeah, so I'm poking the bear. That's kind of what I do. Is we like to believe that we're at choice. We like to believe we have free will. And if we look at the circumstances and our personalities and our inclinations, I wonder how much of it is purely choice. And there may be degrees of choice that we experience. But anyway, I have to run. So I hope that your head is spinning with this as much as mine. So much love to you. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. It's my privilege and pleasure to be with you, and I share with you so much love and appreciation for your time and your energy in engaging in these conversations. So